Hello, and welcome to The Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be.
Well, we are already rolling.
All right.
Very good.
Eric Silveira, welcome to the show. How
Gentlemen,
you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so give us a little bit of a background on who you are, what makes you tick, what do you love about yourself?
Fair. Wow. Okay. I'd say I'm a pretty average dude. Grew up in Cambridge, small town here. I've made this home. Run a business here. Have a family here. Love this community, and I mean, what makes me tick? There's a lot of things. I mean, I work in the creative industry, I'd say. So creating content or video work, photography, it varies. And I think that kind of stuff gets me fired up. Making things, creating things.
You're a builder.
I'm a builder. Yeah, I think that's a lot of what I like to do. So entrepreneur, that kind of stuff gets me fired up and excited. So yeah, and I love people.
Nice. Why don't you just go ahead and plug your company while
Sure.
we're here?
Appreciate that. So I've got a small creative design business called Lucid Digital Media here in Cambridge, Ontario. And we do everything from graphic design, some web development, some video work, some photography work. So we're more of a creative production studio. So we've got lots of clients that come to us for, they might have a marketing manager or agency that they're working with, and we kind of do some of the work or the heavy lifting. So they've got an idea, we bring it to life is kind of how that goes. And then 3 years ago, we also started a co-working space. So the idea with that was, we were working in a, industrial strip mall and very uninspired space. And I thought,
Right.
man,
we need more inspiration here. Yeah.
that was it. And I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be cool to work in a spot we love and are inspired to work in? And then, so I started dreaming about that. And I thought, I started looking into co-working and thinking that was a really cool idea. And just the idea of bringing other people around. Because, getting inspiration from others is a huge part of what makes me excited and gets me kind of out of bed, where I get to spend time with other people, bounce ideas off of them, grow, and they challenge me on stuff. And that's just, I love that. And I wanted to build a spot that could facilitate that, actually. So that's what Galt Collective has become. So we've got some offices, we've got some community members, we'll host events, that kind of stuff. And
Is that where you're moving, Zach?
No,
okay.
we're going into a different building.
Okay.
But his building is beautiful. I've been there a number of times, and if he was going for inspiring,
Then
he nailed
he's
it.
now got the inspiring down. Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
cool, man. Cool.
Okay,
Appreciate
well,
that.
we ask everyone this,
Yeah.
so we're going to ask you, what do you love about this country?
Yeah, I was thinking about that before this chat, and there's a lot that I love about Canada, no question. And I think if I had to narrow it down, I think I would have to land on opportunity and freedom. Those are things that both of my parents are first-generation Canadians, and when they came to this country, their parents came and they saw this as a place where they could, have an opportunity for a life, and that was, it was fertile soil. And thank you, and that has been something that I've experienced. I've seen them live their lives and work hard, and it's basically kind of what you want is what you can get here, and you work for it, and there's opportunity, and you've got the freedom to do what you want, and I think that's something we've taken for granted as Canadians.
Absolutely, we have. Look where we are at right now.
Totally. And I think, Zach and I were chatting a while back, and, I think that was part of our conversation was, some of the stuff that we've really valued and really appreciate and have taken for granted. Are we starting to maybe lose some of that? Or do we need to be aware of what's going on?
We're at risk of losing it, I think. And I think it's like people like yourself, people like that, other people that have come on this podcast, and a lot of people out there that are raising the alarm and saying, this is ridiculous. For example, yesterday or the day before, we found out that the Alberta government was going to be using drones to monitor provincial campgrounds to make sure that no one was using them during the lockdown. There is zero evidence, that COVID is being spread outdoors. Right? Like there's a lot of studies that, in fact, it seems like it isn't spreading at all outdoors. In fact, Alberta had a rodeo of 1,500 people, like in protest, the end of the lockdown rodeo. And there's not a single case tied to that rodeo. 1,500 people outside together at a rodeo.
That's wild.
Right? And it's like, okay, so we've lost the plot.
Right.
Why did we lose the plot?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think's happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of that is we live in like a safety first culture, I feel right now. So,
absolutely.
I mean, we put safety as our number one priority. So, if there's a risk, if there's a chance that something's not going to work, if there's, some danger or whatever, we try to insulate everybody from that. As a population, I feel, and I think the government steps into that. I think parents are doing that right now too. I mean, I see that even raising our kids. It's like, there's a lot that I know that I can save you from, and so I need to do that as a parent.
Please listen to me. Yeah.
But there are going to be some things that I need to let them experience or go through that might hurt or that might not be safe.
Right.
And I just feel like, when we start going down that road, then we lose responsibility for ourselves, and then someone else has to take that. There becomes almost a sense that, the government's there to protect me or to, take care of me and provide for me, which I don't agree with that. I don't subscribe to that at all. And I think, COVID, I feel like, is a great example of that. I mean, COVID's a real thing, and, it's, affected a ton of people. But there needs to be a personal responsibility end of this, that we make decisions for ourselves. We decide what we feel comfortable with or not comfortable with, and to think that the government can fix this or stop this is, I think, a little crazy.
Yeah, I just finished a podcast with our other cousin Luke that I have another podcast with and he has another podcast called The Liberal Soul, the classical liberal idea, liberty.
Yep.
Liberal is founded on the word liberty, which is obviously a bastardization of it now. But John Stuart Mill came up with this idea saying individual freedom is more important than anything else. And that was the foundation of what we now know as the Western world and democracy. And democracy is the form of government that is founded on the idea of individualism. You can't really have democracy without individualism. And I find it interesting, just like you said, and it's so key, is it's like, if security is our sole goal, individual freedom is impossible.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So how do we get out of this? How do we get away from this?
Well, and and then it spins into other things where you talk about like social media and stuff, and even mainstream media and what they allow or don't allow, and freedom of speech and stuff like this, because we want to protect people and we want them to have what's right. Well, who's the arbiter of what is
there
right?
You go.
Right?
Who's
and
the arbiter?
This is where it gets really slippery to me. And, Zach and I were talking, like, we got to have these conversations. And I feel like we're getting lulled to sleep in some ways, where it's like, well, let's just sit tight, or let's,
it'll get better. It'll get better.
Yeah. And our will to kind of like work through this stuff or do the work of trying to figure it out is hard work. And we're trying to kind of like offload that, right?
Yeah.
Could
you dig into that more? How do you see that offloading happening?
I mean, I feel, or I see, I think, going back to COVID maybe, where it's like, okay, I'm going to sit tight, I'm going to hunker down, you tell me what to do, and you're going to provide for me so I don't even have to go to work, and you're going to provide me with CERB or whatever. That's great. And like, okay, so are we good to go back to work now? Or, where it's like, okay, I think there needs to be a way for people to be industrious and to be innovative, and like, okay, here's the plot's changed. We got this thing we're up against. We gotta work through it. We gotta figure it out. And we're not fostering that, because it's like, oh, here you go, right? And again, like, it's such a tough one to, like, I don't have all the answers for this by any means.
No, this is a conversation. None of us have the answers.
But I think
like you said, we have to have the conversation.
We have to have the conversation. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that does answer it. And I would go a bit further with what you said, in that I think that if there's this old way of thinking about things, that if you don't have discomfort,
right,
then you cannot have growth.
Right.
Like a plant that is growing is not a comfortable thing.
Totally.
Right? A human who's seeing growth. I mean, when we're going through puberty, our voices are cracking, our emotion, we're awash in emotions. Like life is nuts, right? But that's growth. And you have to go through that phase.
You do. And I think there's something so valuable about going through that and going through the pains of learning something, failing at something. I look at the education system and it's like, well, no one can fail. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like you're going to fail in life.
The very best place to fail is in a school where you have the safety net around you and it's not for keeps right now. Like where we're sending people out, they haven't failed at anything. We send them out into the world and now they fail and it's like, no, this really hurts and it's real. And now you're like so far down the road that it's like, you know, I feel like we got people struggling with anxiety and depression and whatever. Like we're creating that.
Yes, we are.
Right?
Because we're not teaching people how to have strong minds anymore. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, but I want to bring it up with you and get your thoughts on it. We live in a society that worships victims, that says victims are our highest form of being, and they're the ones that need to be protected. They're our saints now. Yeah. They're the people we worship. They're the people that we bend over backwards to protect. When do you think it became a thing of value to be a victim?
Man, I think it's a great question. I think it's kind of what we've been dancing around where, you know, we've almost encouraged it. And it's like, instead of like, hey, that was tough, you know, here's how you work from that point. It's like, oh, okay, that's hard. Let me do it for you or let me help you through that. And I mean, there's stuff that's gone on in history that we need to deal with, no question.
Oh, absolutely.
No question. But what is the most helpful thing to do for people, right? And, you know, I talk to a lot of people and it's like, well, this is, you know, the loving thing to do or whatever. And it's like, okay, have you ever thought that maybe the most loving thing to do is to tell someone the truth or to help someone forward instead of just saying like, hey, you know, you're fine the way you are. That might be the most unloving thing you could say to somebody. Not that you're saying you're not fine. They know they're not fine in a lot of cases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like, could we not say, I know who you are, I love you, but I want to see you grow. I want to see you develop. Instead of just saying like, okay, here's who you think you are, and we're going to affirm that and just leave you in that spot. That's terrible.
In fact, we're going to put you in this box now.
Totally.
Of this is who you are. Totally. Based on things that are entirely out of your control.
Totally.
It stunts growth, and it's kind of like enabling a drug addict, where you're avoiding having the tough conversation of like, hey, you're making mistakes. Yeah. This isn't going well. You need to deal with this. If we don't have those conversations in our lives with the people that we influence, the people around us, and I think that's what's happened. We've not had those conversations because we've been more concerned in creating safe spaces for people to feel good in. And now we have a whole bunch of safe spaces, but we don't have people who understand how to weather failure.
Right.
And weather the consequences of something not coming through emotionally or just in their everyday lives. And I think that opens the door for a government to then step in and say, we can take care of you. Because
and
it's such a relief.
Let's not get this twisted, right? Government wants that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I've spent the last 15 years of my life, 16 years of my life now studying this, living it, working in it, getting people elected, being disappointed by our politicians for 16 years now. And I will say this.
Sounds amazing.
The state is not our friend. Right? The bigger the state gets, the worse it gets. This is a universal truth.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a recent conversation with a close friend or someone that's become a really close friend. And she made the revelation that she's like, you know, the government is basic, like they're not there for my best interest. Like they're trying to make things work and stuff, but like they're not concerned about me, this person.
Well, they can't be.
I mean? They can't be.
Literally, their job is not to be, right? Because it has to be according to John Stuart Mill, the best for the best number, the highest number.
And this is something that early in COVID, anyways, my wife and I were batting this around, and we kind of all these conversations all circled back to this idea of scale. And this idea that we've built this world on scale. We've been told that bigger, better, faster is more economical. It's the way forward. It's the best way to do things. And
having more stuff will make you happier.
All that. And that's what we've been fed. And that's what people, I think, to some degree believe. But we can't do this anymore.
No.
And we've built this machine that requires so much to keep it going now. There's so much momentum behind it that we need to like have a serious look at maybe big isn't best. Maybe,
I'm 100% a believer in that.
Yeah, like maybe we need to scale this stuff back. You look at, social media. Can you manage that many friends on social media? Should you care what thousands of people think of what you're going through?
The answer is no,
right?
In case anyone is curious.
Right.
With the one exception that I think that if you're doing something like music or politics, getting your message out to a broader audience, but like if you're treating them as friends, social media should never be taught as your friend environment.
Right.
It should be, you're going to broadcast your desired image. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's bad. Like you're fake.
Yeah.
No, like always and at any given moment, no matter where you are, you're broadcasting an image that is going to be imperfect because you know everything about yourself.
Right.
And the person interacting with you only, like, for example, I just met you. All I know is that's the only information I have is the image you're broadcasting through what you're wearing, through how you carry yourself, through how you talk.
I'm wearing clothes,
And all of that to say, we shouldn't bash the idea of not being fully known. Right? Because that's impossible. But people become consumed with the image of other people that, again, they don't know.
Right. And here's, one of the other societal issues I think with that is that so much of the struggle or the challenge that we're all kind of trying to figure out is so nuanced and so specific, so granular for us personally that, to wade into some of these heavy conversations, there needs to be a bit of a rapport and a connection where it's like, hey, you know what? I know Zach. Zach's a good dude, and he has a different opinion. You know what? Like, he's not a wicked, evil dude. Like, he's like a nice guy, and that, like, I don't understand that, and so I need to talk about that. But I'm coming now from a position of like, I kind of know
openness
Zach.
too,
it's
right?
openness,
Yeah.
And it's not like it doesn't have to work for everybody. It's between us, this conversation, and it's nuanced and it's interesting and hopefully enriching and growing and challenging, and we work through that. But we're not coming at it from this like, oh, I gotta present this polished image that it's going to be acceptable for everybody. Because like that's not life.
No.
Oh, there's so many good things in there because it's about having the conversation, which is something that we've touched thematically on the podcast before. We have to have the conversations with people we agree with people we disagree with, and I feel like society has bred this scenario where you can't associate with people that you don't agree with on every level.
Right.
If they have a different opinion, then they're over there and you're over here and you guys are two different things. And then you throw on top of that this cancel culture thing that is happening. And it is, man, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it is eliminating our ability to learn from each other. And when a society is having the conversation and learning from each other, we are growing and getting better. And that is not being fostered in what we see today.
Right.
And that's a huge, huge problem.
Just on that point, I think the reason that that's happening is we have shifted from individualism to group identity.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is the most dangerous thing you can do. Why? For a couple of reasons. But the first is a group identity is reliant on dogma. Because groups don't exist. Right? They are fictions that we create, just like the state, just like all of the like a religion. I'm not saying all religion is fiction. I'm just saying we create these stories in order to navigate our worlds of meaning. But if the story is this is who I am based on this external signifier that I share with others, then there will always be oppression. Because if the individual is not the cornerstone of reality, if a group is, whether it's LBGT, Black Lives Matter, or it's Christians, or it's or it's white supremacists, whatever it is, if your identity becomes as being part of a group as opposed to being an individual, society has lost the most beautiful thing it has.
100%. 100%. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. And that's what is so scary to me right now, where I see this stuff. You know, you take LGBTQ. People are identifying, like, this is who they are presenting as, this is me. That's not you.
No, exactly.
That's your sexual preference orientation. Like, that's not you. You're more
more
so
than that.
much
You're
more
so
than that.
much more
You're
than
so
that.
much more than that.
Your sexual preference is a piece of you, but it is not the
100%.
defining factor of
It
you.
shouldn't be the defining factor, but for now, a lot of people, like you just said, it has become that. And I'm shocked by that. I'm like, don't you want to be more?
Right. You
Like,
totally.
like don't you want to have nuanced, interesting conversations about all of the many things that are out there besides sex?
Right. 100%, right?
Like, sex is awesome. Don't get me wrong. We all love it. But like, I'm sorry. Our culture is soaked in sex.
Yeah.
Sex is everything. What you even think of your own sex.
Right.
Right? Why?
Right. Great questions, right? And, you know, I think kind of one of the things I wanted to interject a while back was I've been starting to hear rumbles of people talking about the idea of forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
And
Thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah, 100%,
Yes.
man. Because like that to me is such a missing element right now. There is like, it's cancel culture. It's just like, you said this, boom, you're done. There has to be a way forward. And I truly believe the only way forward is through forgiveness. And
There it is.
man, we need
The
that.
only way forward is forgiveness.
Well, but like,
that's the title of the
cool.
episode.
but that's the thing, man. Because I don't have it all figured out. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna get it wrong. But I need to have a way forward from that, right?
Well, this goes back to what you were saying earlier. Failing, allowing yourself to fail and forgiving yourself for failing is something we don't do anymore.
Totally.
Right? And it's not just about forgiving other people for heinous things they've done or little things they've done. It's about forgiving yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's going to limit you from trying things because you're scared to fail, you're scared to be canceled, you're scared to not succeed. And so you're putting this limiter on yourself even. And so like we need a mechanism for forgiveness, I think, and people need to offer that to people. And you know, it's so critical, man. So critical.
I couldn't agree more because I think it's the critical thing. And how can we really have forgiveness? Honesty, right? If I've harmed you, you have to honestly come to me and say, look, you've hurt me.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people are like, well, unless that person is really sorry, I won't forgive them.
Right.
No.
Right.
Once you've had that honest
Yeah.
conversation, you said, you hurt me.
Yeah.
You can hold on to that hurt.
Right. Totally.
You could just be like, oh, that
Totally.
person hurt me. Fuck them.
Yeah.
I hate them. Or
Right.
you could just forgive them. See, that's the beauty of forgiveness. If you forgive someone,
Yeah, man.
it doesn't matter what they do after that.
Totally.
But forgiveness can transform a person. Like
Totally,
being forgiven.
Totally. Like it, yeah.
Do you have any examples? Like I like to bring you, like, because this is your
sure.
story. Like give us an example of a time you forgave and it just healed you.
Trying to think of something. Now you got me on the spot.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I mean, here's a really personal one. I'm a Christian.
Right.
And so I know I'm a massive screw up, big failure, and I can't do this life on my own. And so, I mean, I feel God has forgiven me, and that allows me to live life. Imperfectly, I'm still going to fail, I'm still going to whatever, but I know that I've been forgiven, or I can have forgiveness for the things I do wrong. And so, I mean, that's me personally, and that allows me to live life to the fullest and then share that with other people and try to say, hey man, like here's what I've found. Here's what's worked for me. It allows me to forgive others when they offend or hurt me as well, because I've experienced forgiveness. So
Yes.
I mean, that's a personal.
No, I love
experience.
I love that both Zach and I are Christians and we're raised. My dad's a minister.
Okay,
and,
cool.
We've obviously I went down my own path, and I'm in no way claim to have like lived. But I want to get into what you just said. John Steinbeck has a line in East of Eden where he said,
just finished that book, man.
East of Eden.
Blew my mind.
Which book?
Shout
East
out
of
to
Eden.
John Steinbeck.
It's one of the
East
greatest books
Eden.
ever written.
Unbelievable.
I did a podcast
Okay.
on it with Luke. It's one
Yeah,
of my favorites.
I'll have to read it.
But I will say this. There's a line in it that I will never forget, and it says, now that you no longer have to be perfect, or now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. And that is the problem, is everyone is being told, even on, and social media plays a big role in this. We have an epidemic in North America of preteen and teenage girls doing self-harm and killing themselves because they're not perfect.
Right.
And that's such
and
an
you cannot be
standard.
good if your goal is perfection.
Yeah.
And I want to.
And who's defining perfect?
Well, this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
The aggregate.
Yeah.
Right. The likes. Right. The mob is defining perfect instead of the eccentric, the interesting, the individual. No, and now it's like, oh, you have to be this thing to be perfect. It's complete BS. And furthermore, if your demands on yourself are perfection for your society or for yourself, you will be evil, because you will now say every end justifies the mean, or every means is justified by this perfect end.
Right.
Well, I mean, not to drag something really, really dark into it, but that's how something like Nazi Germany was allowed to exist, by thinking like that.
Or communist China.
Or communist China. Or the Soviet Russia,
Union.
You know? I want to touch on this forgiveness thing again, because I think there's a nuance we need to bring out. Not only do we need to forgive other people, but we really, 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 and we've kind of touched on it, we really need to get better at forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
We really, I need to say that again. We need to get better at forgiving ourselves, because anytime I'm in a place where I can forgive myself and I allow myself to make mistakes, one, I make less mistakes than I think I'm going to make.
Yep.
When I do make the mistakes, I care less that I made them. And when I'm honest about them, maybe I'm just a really lucky dude, but there's a community of people around me who are like right on board to help me through it. And that's how we dig out of this weird mess that we're in, by forgiving other people and forgiving ourselves. And just like grace, you said grace, man. Grace,
totally.
Like,
a crazy thing. It's a crazy concept, right?
It revolutionized the world.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. In fact, part of why we're here in this victim culture, this is my theory anyway, part of why we're here is actually grace, and the idea that it's like weakness is not evil, and all of these things. It's like the least of you will be raised up, right? There's a lot of post-Christian, because we're in a post-Christian society. Christianity was the foundation of Judeo-Christianity. We're post that now. Now there's the remnant, right?
And bringing that into this conversation, like, I think that's one of, going back to why I love Canada, is like, we've got this freedom and this opportunity and stuff here, and like, we can't kid ourselves that was founded on like Judeo-Christian values or a Judeo-Christian ethic, I think, and like it's comes with some detractors and stuff as well. But like, I mean, we got such an incredible foundation here, and we're starting to tear away at that foundation to our own detriment. And that's very concerning to me. And I mean, that's something that I'm very interested to explore more. And I feel like we have done such a piss poor job of teaching history.
Oh, yeah. Nobody knows history
understanding, what actually happened to bring us to this place in time, and how we got these freedoms and these opportunities. And man, we've just thrown some of this stuff out, and that's not important, or it's hard to work through, or, it's messy or whatever. It's like not a good enough answer to me.
Well, no, because where do we end up if we don't have those things, right? We end up in a society where people can't forgive one another. Well, we're watching that happen right now, right? Where and the weird thing, and everyone's like, oh, we're post-religion. No, we just have a new religion.
Right.
And the problem with this new religion is there's no forgiveness, but there is guilt. Right?
They'll make you feel guilt.
They'll make you feel guilt, right? But there's no way out. There's no answer to it. If you've done something, and maybe you did something egregious in your past, right? A lot of these people that are being canceled didn't, but some of them did.
Yeah.
Well, if we can't forgive others, how will we forgive ourselves? And here's the other part I think that's important with grace that we were talking about is, like, you're not actually hurting the person that you're not forgiving. You're only hurting yourself. Like, that toxicity in your soul will spread like a cancer.
Yeah, it'll eat you up.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it's something to work through for sure.
Yeah.
We just had recently a guy on who was has just longed to come to Canada ever since he spent, I think it was 4 years here or something along those lines.
I think it was 7.
Yeah, he spent kind of his childhood after like your young childhood here, and he's now spent, I don't know how many years, but many years trying to get back because he loves this place so much, and he lived in Argentina for a number of years, and I'm just blown away by the fact that most of our education is teaching our children how awful this country is. Right. And yet here's a guy who, like, if our country was that bad, he would not want to be here.
Right. That's it. And like, that's crazy to me, right? Where it's like, yeah, when you hear of what our kids are learning or what we're hearing in the news or what is being put on us, yeah, like, again, there's stuff we got to figure out, but we got it great. Like, it's amazing.
Oh,
it's
so good.
Incredible. It's
we have
incredible.
so much to be thankful for.
Totally. And that we just continue to push the negative aspects of what we all appreciate. I mean, that's one of the other funny things to me about this is like you can throw stones, yet you're in this position to be able to throw stones, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you got a platform to throw stones, and it's like, hold on, like you're standing on the backs of others that have given you this opportunity and this freedom. How dare you chuck something at what they've worked for and just blow it up? Like, you know, one of the things I often, this is a Jordan Peterson thing, I think, but like the idea that like, okay, you can criticize something, but you better have
a solution.
That's
one of our rules on our podcast.
Clean. What is the chapter? Clean up your room before you criticize the world.
Yeah. Or in the words of Jesus, you know, get rid of the log in your own eye before you get the speck out of your brother's eye.
Yeah. Totally. And like that's something that like it's so easy to go, well, I hate this or I don't like that. I don't agree with this. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your solution?
Yeah.
How do we move forward?
And if your solution is, well, I just don't want any of those people to have power, then we know what this is. This is Marxism.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another thing that, man, like if people could realize the cost to get to where we're at today, unbelievable.
Oh, it's insane.
The vast majority of human history has been misery.
Totally. And we're living in this unbelievable dream, really. Like, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, man, we cannot let this
crumble.
This
guy that we had on again, I just really enjoyed it, so I'm going to keep bringing it up. But he literally said, he's like, he was describing Burlington to people in Argentina, and they said it sounds like a fairy tale. Burlington, like, I mean, I'm sorry, I mean, I don't have any special love for Burlington, and no negativity towards it either. I'm just like,
Sunshine Donuts is down there.
It seems like a pretty average Canadian suburb, and he's describing it like it's paradise.
Right,
it is paradise.
Totally. It's perspective, right?
Yeah, and we don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. No. Perspective changes a lot too, right? When you're talking about, you know, we've got several generations now that have grown up in this. So this is what we know. This is what we think is normal. This is what we feel entitled to. And, you know, how do we make this better and whatever. But, you know, our perspective is so myopic. It's so small compared to what other people have gone through or seen or lived through or dealt with or, you know, what they've come up against. So, I mean, man, my wife and I traveled the world for a year, and let me tell you, that was a lesson, like a life-changing lesson in perspective. You know, up until that point, I'd done some traveling, but I'd thought, you know, we live a pretty normal life, and this is kind of, I bet you most of the world lives like this. Man, alive.
No.
We are the smallest
creme de la creme. We're like
100%, man.
If you're born in Canada, you are the 1%.
We think this is normal. This is not normal. And I mean, yeah, we're so fixated on our little world and our little piece of it, and think that, you know, it's crap. It's not crap.
No,
it's amazing.
No, and I actually have a friend who left Canada to go do some significant stuff in the UK, and he's like high up there, and so he holds these conferences all the time, and he's constantly bringing Canadians and Americans and all these other people into the room, and he says, David, Canadians are so parochial.
Right.
He's like, they're just navel gazers. And he's like, the best thing that could ever happen to Canadians is that you have to leave for a year. Right. You have to go somewhere else and see how the world is. Because once you've done that,
man,
that's gonna dispel this myth that we're just some kind of right now there's a little bit of oppression going on.
Sure.
We could even talk about that a little more. But the truth of the matter is, I had a friend who was in Laos and he working for the government there, and he actually got just kicked out by the state just arbitrarily, right? And he said to me, for the first time in my life, I had PTSD from that in a park in Montreal where the police during curfew, right? Just driving through the crowds.
Right.
And it's like, we got to hold, like you said, a lot of blood was shed to get us here. A lot of people gave their lives for what we have. And we should not let it slip away.
100%. And I think, that's something that Zach and I were talking about is like, so with that knowledge, what do we do? How do you do this, right? And I think it kind of comes back to the scale thing where it's not the way of the world, but it's these conversations that you need to have with people. It's going out for a beer with somebody, sitting across the table, talking about this stuff. It's having people into your house and for dinner and just basic community kind of things. And I think it's those small conversations. They're not the efficient way to do this, but I don't see a better way to do it.
Well, nothing worth doing can be done quickly.
Right.
No.
So you say it's the inefficient way, but the inefficient way might just be the way.
Right.
You know?
How counter to what we've been told or what we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, instant gratification
right?
is the new norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We most our children now teach dating us. It's commodified, right? It's like, oh well, nah. You just swipe. Oh,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I've got 20 other options, so like, I'm not going to really invest in you.
Right.
And not just that, but everything is that way now. Oh, I'm hungry. Uber Eats.
Totally.
Oh,
I don't even have to work to go get it. It's like, it's crazy, right? Like, there's so much, man. We could go on for hours. But
yes.
like the idea that like there's value in working for something too, right?
Well,
like where it's not easy, it's hard, and there's something about the process and the struggle and the challenge that's so much more rewarding when you finally do eat that thing that you would have got on Uber Eats or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I had to go out and then I actually talked to this person and I had whatever and I had this conversation and, where that led took more time and that was annoying, but, that person needed help or what. Like, I don't know. But it's like, man, there's something in the struggle that's so valuable.
The best things, the things that I cherish the most in my life have been the hardest fought for. My skills as a recording engineer, building a business, having a healthy relationship with my wife. Like those are the most real struggles and the longest fought and the hardest things and the messiest things, but they bring me by far and above the most joy.
Yeah.
And it is directly counter to the instant gratification. I don't think instant gratification is good for us.
Yeah.
I think humbling yourself and enjoying the process and learning and failing and forgiving yourself and figuring it out over a long time is the most rewarding thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah, man.
And having a plan, right? Like in the sense of don't just working hard for the sake of working hard is BS.
Yeah.
Right. You have to have a goal. You have to have an objective.
It's a lame end.
I just want to. There is this philosophy: is if I just work hard, I'll get ahead. Well, no, work smart too.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
Focused.
And be more than just about work, right? Like be in it for the ride and the the experience of the process, right? Where if someone's so focused on I just got to make money.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Why don't you make money and be a great person and invest in your community and your family and stuff along the way, man?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you're going to get to the end of that life
That's a
better fulfilled.
life. Yeah, exactly.
Far more.
Exactly.
100%. I want to talk your perspective on, and we touch on this all the time, but lockdowns, government overreach.
Yeah.
Where are you at on all that?
I'm done with it.
Hey, I'm struggling to find people who aren't. I'm sure they're out there.
It's funny, right? Like I talk to a lot of people and I get the same sense. So I'm like, who are these people that are for this stuff? And I understand there's a significant health challenge hanging in the balance and we're trying to balance that out. But I mean, when we're starting to affect people's mental health by locking them away. We're made for community. And when you start locking people away and isolating people, that's not good. So that's a massive component to me is people's mental health.
There's a reason they use it as torture
100%.
in prison.
Totally.
Yeah, isolation.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you start, when you've got these big corporations, they're able to stay open, yet the small business is the one that's taking it on the chin. And come on, guys, like let's all do this together.
Be in this together.
We're not doing it together
Costco
here.
doesn't seem to be in on this deal with us.
And so, like, I feel like the small business or medium-sized business, they're the ones that have taken this the hardest and have felt this the most. And that is so key to the fabric of our communities, man. When we lose that,
we lose our humanity.
yeah. And so, like going down a darker road, it's like, is that part of what's going on here? Where it's like, hey, Costco, Walmart, you guys keep trucking along, and we can control you because you're 1, 2, or whatever, you're a handful of people. But all these little small businesses and stuff, it'd be easier if we could have more control over them. And so I don't know. That's kind of like a weird thought, and I hope I'm wrong in that, but it's a concern to me.
Well, even if you are wrong, that's unimportant, right? Because what we're addressing, like you said, we're having the conversation, and I think you're probably closer to being right than wrong. But it isn't about being right.
No.
It's about, hey, this is important.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention.
Totally.
And it's not, all you have to do is take a quick look at the situation and see that the lockdown measures have created a severe erosion of middle class life.
For sure.
Oh, yes.
Like there's no question about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, who do you know that's doing better now or has fared moderately through lockdown? Nobody.
Exactly, like myself.
Okay. But I mean, there are some people for sure that are good on their own, or that, for me, it was an opportunity for me to dial my life back. I was like, I'm running hair on fire all the time. Like that's kind of how I lived my life. And this was a great opportunity for me to go like, oh, okay, hold on. Maybe I got some stuff out of whack. I need to rein that back in. I need to choose what I'm doing instead of just doing what's urgent. And, so that's being positive. But I feel like we've reached a point, though, where those lessons hopefully have been learned. If you haven't learned them yet, you're not going to learn them.
You're not going to learn them, yeah.
But now we're at a point where the harm that we're causing with these lockdowns, I think, goes beyond the benefit.
Well, and this is the question, and we're running out of time, I guess, here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, no, what do we have time? We're at 42 minutes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Right.
I thought it was 52.
Trying to get me out of here now?
No, I just for the
Get out of here.
For the listeners, we just our little policy
No,
that we try not to go above an hour. But sorry, what was I? Oh yeah. So here's the thing: is like we're not even allowing a debate about the intangible costs of this, because the only metric that's being used is cases, deaths, ICUs, and vaccinations. These are the only metrics. Nobody's even telling us how much mental. For example, CHEO has no more beds, and they're asking for more beds for youth with depression and self-harm.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I hadn't heard that.
Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah,
Right?
which is why I hadn't heard about it.
20 people from the same high school class in medicine have now committed suicide. Young
wild,
men,
man. So sad.
right? Because they see no hope. That's not being calculated. And I think, and you know what? I could be wrong. And
Tell me what you think.
I would be happy to be wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong. I think this is going to go down as one of the greatest public policy failures of our lifetimes.
Yeah. And here's one of the other sad parts of this, I think, is nobody's gonna account for it. And that we're gonna move on and go, hey, you know what? Like that was really tough and we learned a lot through it. And we dropped the ball here and there, and we'll do it better next time, but let's move forward.
Well, I intend to make them pay.
But I think there has been a real cost. Yeah. And part of, going back to the forgiveness piece, the idea that like there are still consequences.
Oh yeah,
even with forgiveness.
Forgiveness doesn't mean you don't have to suffer the consequences of your action. No.
And so that needs to be a real topic of conversation, because like there have been people that have lost their livelihoods, lost their lives, lost family members. Like the cost has been real. And what do we do with that?
Exactly. What do we do? And I think the answer has to be conversations. Like you said, it has to be like, no, this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
We can't let them get away with this.
Right.
And it's not because we don't forgive them.
No.
We do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is costing the lives of our fellow Canadians. And they are claiming that they're protecting the lives of our fellow Canadians. This is Orwellian doublespeak at its finest.
Yeah. Viva Fry, who we had on the podcast a couple weeks ago, drew out a really, really, really great example about the cost of the cure. He said, so he's from Quebec. He said, 2 people in the age bracket, 0 to 20 have died from COVID in Quebec. Tragic. A lot more of that age group during lockdown have committed suicide.
Right.
So yes, we need to protect people. Yes, we need to think about the sick. Yes, we need to create systems where those people can be safe. We need to do all of those things.
Right.
But there's no nuance to the conversation because we also need to protect young people who maybe, not to speak down on them, but maybe haven't developed the emotional intelligence to be able to withstand such a traumatic situation. These kids are losing their friends, they're losing their social groups, their structure, they're losing so much, and they don't know how to deal with that. And we're seeing real consequences. And that's as tragic as any COVID death.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Agreement.
So we kind of talked about this over coffee when I was over at your spot. What do you think as private citizens? I mean, we talked about conversations, but what can we do? What is our role? How do we help ourselves and the people around us heal and move forward?
I think I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I don't have the answer by any means. I've got an answer I think that I'm compelled to engage in. And for me, it's about painting a better picture. And I want to live a life that people look at and they go, wow, what's going on with that guy? Like my perspective on things, or my the way I handle disappointment or failure or whatever, there's something different. And I want to live a life that's on display for people in the best way I can do it. So yeah, again, having people over, connecting with people, that kind of thing. It's like I want to paint a better story. I want to paint a better picture. I want to inspire people and challenge them and enter into those messy conversations and stuff, and take the time to do that. But I think we need to paint an inspiring story, man, for people to get excited about.
One might call it the Canadian story.
Right. There you go. No, but I mean that's it, man.
That's literally the purpose of this. So
but I think what you guys are doing is awesome, because I'm like, let's tell the Canadian story. Let's do that. Let's tell people how we got here, why we're doing this, and why we love this place. And if we're not inspiring people that way, I mean, then it's a pretty depressing, sad state of events, man. Like it's like, and I can't control you. I can control me. Or I struggle to control me, but
you can at least try to control you.
I can try to control me. So, I mean, that's something that's in my grasp of, I can have influence that way. And I can work on me, and I can hopefully, push that out. It's funny, like I've thought, man, is it too small to think like, hey, maybe I could get my life figured out a little bit. Maybe I could even help my family get their life figured out, and maybe a couple close friends. Is that a big enough or a great enough vision for my life? And what I've been taught or told is like, no, you got to think bigger. You got to go, you got to have more influence. No. I'm okay with getting that stuff right, or trying to get that stuff right. And then if I have opportunity beyond that, and I get used, or I can reach out beyond that circle, that's going to be my circle. That's going to be where I put my energy and time. And hopefully those people that I connect with will do the same and the same and the same, and that's how we make a difference.
The only way change has ever happened.
It grows exponentially like that.
We have a phrase that I kind of coined near the beginning of this, which says, "A rising tide lifts all ships." I am the tide.
Yeah.
Be the tide.
Totally, man. And I think when I think of it in terms like that, like when I look at the problems in the world, like whatever, I mean, BLM or whatever, it's like, I don't know what I can do to fix anything when we're talking huge scale like that. But I know there's some stuff I can do in my own life that will make a difference.
There you go.
So I'm going to start there. I'm going to do that. And then if I can do more, I'll do more. But like, let me get that working.
Man, that's perfect. It's personal responsibility. Yeah. It's accepting the burden of your own life and making something worth living out of it, and helping the people around you to do the same.
For sure.
And that's our way forward.
That is the
we
way.
Solved it all, guys. That's easy.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really quickly before we let you go, please let people know where they can find you online, your company, whatever you want to plug.
Cool. Thank you. Lucid Digital Media, Instagram, Facebook, ldm.ca is their website. Galt Collective is the co-working space as well. So if anyone wants to check that out, again, Instagram, website, whatever. I'm not a big social media kind of guy, unfortunately, but
neither am I.
Not a problem.
I dabble. But hey, thanks guys. I really appreciated this opportunity. It's been a lot of fun and great conversation.
Great conversation.
Cool.
And remember, everyone, forgiveness is the way.
There you go.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's the CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.